You know, Kansas is one of my favorite places to hunt. You know why? Because they have big deer. And it's no magic formula, it's pretty easy. They have fewer hunters and they have a lot more places for deer to roam.
And this week, that first week of November, the 1st through about the 9th, 10th, 11th, that's a time you and I need to be in the woods.
I flat out love Kansas, and I flat out love it for 2 reasons. 1, big bucks. 2, walk-in land.
Creating a honey hole is 10% effort and 90% planning.
This is Land of Whitetail TV.
You know, in my mind, a honey hole consists of everything that a deer wants: food, cover, and water. That's a perfect honey hole.
My definition of the perfect hunting location, well, it's not about success. It's all about buck sightings. I want to see bucks consistently in the same location, the rough geographic area, time and time again.
I can't select one beautiful honey hole that's my favorite. Frankly, it's the entire experience. I love experiencing everything the whitetail world has to offer.
I mean, a lot of people refer to them as honey holes, and I think it's more of a state of mind. It's about success for sure, but it's also those places that are near and dear to your heart for whatever reason.
My favorite destination, it's Kansas. I look forward to just looking at my calendar, and there it is, Kansas in November, and meeting up with my good friends Greg and Kenny down in the Flint Hills of the north central part of the state. This part of Kansas, it has the right amount of minerals naturally occurring in the soil. It has the right amount of agriculture mixed in with everything. And it has the right amount of sanctuary where those whitetails can escape until they're 5, 6, 7 years or older and become just brutes of the prairie.
If you have a honey hole on private land, it's pretty easy to keep it a honey hole and have deer coming back, merely by manipulating the habitat.
For whitetail management, it has taken a huge jump in this area. My good friends Greg and Kenny, they're right there in with it. They've got a management program that all they shoot are mature bucks on their properties. They own their own farms. They help manage some other properties. They've got little honey holes tucked in here and there throughout the area where they live. So we're always searching, checking trail cameras, glassing in the mornings, trying to find that next big buck.
I spend somewhere between 800 to 1,000 hours a year getting everything ready, you know, putting the food plots in, buying the seed, getting soil samples, you know, clearing timber, preparing the field so you can plant them. Just a lot of stuff, you know, putting feeders out, checking cameras. It just seems like every day there's something new to do, but you know, it's a labor of love. You do it because you like it. I take as much pleasure out of putting the food plots in and stuff as I do hunting.
But for the most part, the food plots have flourished in all the crops. So the whitetails, they're rolling in fat. Now I particularly enjoy the first week of November, basically a time frame from November 5th through the 9th. Why is that? Well, it's the pre-rut. It's that high schooler time of year for the whitetails. It's when their hormones are just a little bit out of control. And this week, that first week of November, the 1st through about the 9th, 10th, 11th, that's a time you and I need to be in the woods. Testosterone is surging. Bucks are anticipating. They're anxious. And the does, well, they're not in heat yet. So you got all this testosterone just flowing. And bucks are starting to run, and you need to be in a tree stand then. And that's why I came to Kansas on Halloween and started my hunt the very first day of November.
Land of Whitetail is brought to you by Cuddyback, more deer, fewer blanks. Analogics, protect your herd with the power of science. Thompson Center, America's master gunmakers. Hornady, Accurate, deadly, dependable. And by Scent Killer Gold with Hunt Dry technology. Apply, dry it, and go hunt.
I'm here in north central Kansas hunting with my good buddy Greg on his farm, and his farm is a Garden of Eden. Food plots in every corner where farming is available. Good water management, good refuge management, and I'm hoping we're going to see some good results because of it. His management is definitely something that you guys and I can learn something about while we're hunting here in Kansas.
You know, the one thing I think I've learned through the years as far as food plots is try to put a variety in. Because some years, some things don't grow good as others. You don't know what the rain's going to do, what the weather's going to bring. So I try to get a variety, and the deer, you know, they just go from one to the other. And I make a variety of bigger food plots and smaller food plots. You know, and you try to hunt over the smaller ones. Just let them kind of feed over the bigger ones, and, you know, and feel comfortable and relaxed. So you can get some daylight photos of them and see them in the day.
It's heating up, literally and figuratively. What I mean is the temperature's heating up. This morning we got in the stand about 47 degrees. I'd like to see it about 37, maybe even 27 to keep those whitetails a little bit more supercharged in the mornings. We're in the pre-rut. It literally could break out any minute, and that's why I mean figuratively. The temperatures, they're gonna get close to 80 degrees today. That's not good for the rut. But because the pre-rut is kicking in, we're gonna have these windows, basically dawn and dusk. Middle of the day, I don't think we're gonna see much cruising. These deer, they're wearing their parkas, their fur coats. They're a little bit too bulked up to be doing a lot of cruising when it's 80 degrees. But when that temperature drops below 60 degrees, and there's a lot of studies to show that that 60 degree below and in the 50s especially, like this morning, 47 to 50, that's an ideal time to catch them moving. So what do you do in the midday? Well, we're gonna check some cameras. We've got a camera here. We're gonna go look at some other areas and see if we need to put some stands up. So use your time wisely when it's hot out.
What I do is I put out as many cameras as I can off season. June, July, kind of get out of there by August. Get as many photos as I can to see what's out there. But by August, I really pare that back. I'll only have one camera maybe per 40-acre parcel by the time hunting season hits. Why? Because every time I'm out there, I'm putting scent out there. I'm gonna leave scent out there the more times I run out there. The more times I run out there, I might be bumping deer out of their beds. They're gonna pick up, they're gonna pattern me immediately. So by hunting season, I'm gonna pare it way back.
My cutty back ambush. It's a great scouting tool. And a lot of bow hunters, whitetail hunters in general, any hunters, they use them in the summer. But remember that in the fall, it can be a great scouting tool as well. And I know you know that, but think of it as your hunting partner. Someone that's out there when you're at work, when you can't be out in the woods watching that tree stand location that you've been wondering about. Maybe overlooking a food plot that you can't see from your other stand. Use them as your extra set of eyes so you don't have to waste time going to different stand setups that you've wanted to hunt all season long, but you're kind of flipping the coin. Should I hunt this one? Should I hunt that one? Well, this extra partner out there can tell you exactly which one to hunt. Check the cards. If there's deer on it, you know that if it captured it the day before, there's a good chance the day you show up, that deer will be coming by your tree stand. Trail cameras, they're a great hunting partner, and you don't have to put gas in their truck. Trail cameras, they just don't lie. They're telling you the truth. The draw was thick. It was kind of one of those pass-through zones that deer like to use after they've been out feeding on the food plots. And there were at least 3 or 4 different food plots above us. So deer would naturally want to cut down through this draw and pick out a nice bedding area in the oaks and scrub brush surrounding these food plots. We sat there all night long. And the same little button buck and doe fawn came in and out, along with their turkey friends, but no big bucks. Now, again, I'm not disappointed. We were seeing action. We had a lot of things to watch there, but it's just getting a little frustrating when you're at the halfway or beyond point of your hunt and you haven't seen a shooter buck and you know they're here, because you can see them right there. There's one, there's one, there's one, there's one. When you're looking at trail cameras, yeah, it gets to be a little frustrating. So that night back at camp, Greg had a whole new plan. We were just gonna dump the spots we'd been at. They were good spots, and try another farm. His buddy Kenny had a place that just looked ideal from the topographical maps. It had great fingers of cover, food plots interspersed around it, and, well, it seemed to be some deer that wanted to show up in daylight, according to the trail cameras. We packed up our gear the next morning and headed in that direction. Met Kenny, and before daylight, before shooting light, we were comfortably in our stand. At sunrise, we were not disappointed.
So Mark's in Kansas. Well, let me tell you about Kansas. It's windy all the time. You're rarely gonna get one of those bluebird days where, 5-mile-an-hour wind, it's perfect. You can test the wind and go out and hunt. Chances are you're gonna have to grapple with that wind, play the wind, and find out how to get up on those deer.
They have a ton of data out there now from GPS collared bucks showing that regardless of what's going on, deer move. When do they move? Well, across the board, they move at dawn and dusk. No new shocker there, right? But in a weather event, they will change that pattern. They won't necessarily be out on a field edge feeding, nipping clover. They'll move into the interior. So you need to do the same. Yeah, deer will move, so you probably want to go hunting. Now, why wouldn't you want to go hunting? If you get to your stand or you think your stand is going to be jeopardized by the wind, then I'm not talking about direction. I'm talking about speed and maybe time to stay home. So what am I talking about? Well, if you get strapped up into your tree stand and the wind is blowing, you need to draw back your bow, or even if you're rifle hunting, hold your rifle and see if you can steady the aim. And what does that make for? Well, it makes for an unethical shot, and it makes for a higher percentage of wounding. Those are things that I just don't want to deal with. I hate winning, but you know what? I love hunting. You just go hunting. Don't worry about the wind. It's the pre-rut. Anything can happen. Keep your hopes up, man. It's gonna happen. But the deer, they did start to show up. First a few does, then a small buck cruised in, and then right at the end of the field, what did I see? A big buck step out. I grabbed my Nikons. I checked him out. That's the one we've been seeing on trail camera. He's been showing up here regularly. One that just had me thinking, maybe, just maybe, I might have to shoot this buck. He started to scrape like a maniac, throwing dirt like an excavator at a gravel pit. And he was wound up. I gave him a few soft grunts. Why? Well, I had some deer running around beside me, some fawns playing in the oaks, and he heard them. So I figured, why not use them as decoys? Make him think there's a buck chasing, and that's all it took. When he heard those soft grunts, here he come, right down the edge of the field. That buck came right up to the edge, almost into shooting range. And I was starting to think, man, maybe I should take this buck. This is all happening right now. I may never see this big buck. And then for some odd reason, that buck bolted like he had just seen a Halloween ghost. He ran to the other side of the field, and he made up my mind for me. I didn't have to shoot him. He'll probably come back out. We're just gonna have to be patient.
Okay, pre-rut anxiety in a buck's mind. In a place like Kansas, this is what's going on. You have relatively low deer densities. You have a buck that's feeling his oats, and he wants to compete for rights for breeding. He's gonna have to put on some miles. So as he's leading up to the rut, this buck is bulking up, and then he's gonna be on the move.
So I'm gonna ask you, where do you think I went the next morning? Yeah, you got it right. Right back to that same stand. Why not? I had seen the buck I wanted. I just felt like the more I sat there, the higher the odds were him and I were gonna have a Matthews meeting. a roar came in. This buck just roared running, and he was wound up, but they were chasing the does around despite the wind. So I was beginning to feel like maybe this could happen. Just take it easy. The wind is no problem. You don't need to be shooting across the field. Things are happening right on your edges. Just settle down and enjoy it and hope for the best. Then I looked up again in that same spot, all the way across the food plot, and guess who's standing there, waiting in line to have his turn at the ladies? That's our boy. That wind has got those does a little jumpy, and he's following those does up there. And at first, he was just a little leery to come down. Now, I had a long shot on him, 40, 50, 60 yards. I didn't even range it. It was just a little too far in that gusty wind, so I held off on that long shot. I felt like everything was gonna happen. There he is. He's coming out with that other buck up there. And the bucks all interacted. A yearling buck, a 2 or 3 year old, and then this mature buck. And you could see just the size difference. Grade schooler, junior high, and hey, the senior citizen. Their bodies were all different sizes, their antlers were all different sizes. It was like looking through a deer biology book. They were interacting, clicking their antlers, they were bristling, they were setting the pecking order. Me, I was sitting there shivering. I was getting buck fever, thinking this is gonna happen. And here they came. He came straight at me, got in line with those does, turned broadside, and when he did that, I was already at full draw with my Matthews. I feel good about the shot. He was slightly quartering to me, but I had just enough broadside and I slipped it in right at the shoulder, I think. Right there, you can see. There's the arrow right there. Oh yeah, it's complete pass-through, soaked in blood. I don't think I'm gonna have much of a tracking job here. Whew. I'm gonna give this deer, we're getting about 30 minutes. I need to settle down. That deer, we gotta make sure he's dead, let the area settle down, and then we're gonna find out what kind of buck this really is, because to me, he looks like a bruiser.
Land of Whitetail is brought to you by Cuddy Back, more deer, fewer blanks. Analogics, protect your herd with the power of science. Heater bodysuit, you stay warm or your money back. And by Breakthrough Clean Technologies, the difference is clear.
Early this morning, right at shooting light, we finally found some luck in Kansas. A big bruiser. He looks like a 5x4, maybe with a kick or so. And this buck came down the edge of this food plot. Here's the arrow right here. The shot, I was in a tree stand on the edge of this food plot and in the edge of the timber. And that arrow blew right through him. Carbon Express, of course they're a tough arrow. I got a G5 on the end of it. My Matthews no cam. Hey, what's to say about that? It's been treating me good all fall. Now, got to do just a little bit of tracking into the Kansas tall grass to see if that buck is dead right over here. That white belly was just glaring at me in the tall grass. I knew he was down for good. I gave him a poke for good measure. You know, you got to do that for TV. But I knew that buck wasn't going anywhere. Are you ready? There he is. A Kansas beauty of a buck. And we're in the tall grass. You can see I got to clean it all off here. This dude has everything. He's got great mass, tall, exceptional tine length, exceptional brows. In fact, he broke this one off. He'd even be better. But I mean, he's got all the character. Some dimples back here, a kicker here. This is why you come to Kansas. Hey, sure you love the beauty, the prairie, the vistas, it's all about big bucks. This here is exactly why you come to Kansas. And now, I think I've got a pretty good memory that has nothing to do with the Wizard of Oz.
Growing Big with Steve Bartilla.
To really get the most out of your habitat improvements, the whole key. Offer the deer absolutely everything they want and need better than they can get over on the neighbors, and they're going to spend a disproportionate amount of time on your property. So what is it that deer want and need? First, they need food. They need food. Their food sources are going to change throughout season. You need to offer them the best food they can get. Next, safety. I'll tell you what, if deer do not feel safe on that ground and they can feel safe somewhere else, that's where they're gonna go. Next, water. Offer them the best water sources that they can get in the area. That doesn't mean some crystal clear trout stream. What that means is a muddy little puddle that mud is adding minerals into that water, the deer are gonna hit it. Next, we've got comfort. That comfort is determined by offering them thermal cover. Offering them thermal cover in the summer for shade, offering them thermal cover in the winter for heat retention. Then, minimizing social pressure. How do you minimize social pressure? You do so by dividing up the property. Don't try to cram them all into the same spot. That social pressure is very, very hard on these animals. Lastly, breeding opportunities. You follow what we just got done describing, and there are going to be does there. There's going to be a lot. Why? Because Mr. Big can run all around our property because the does aren't leaving in order to find breeding opportunities.
To learn more, go to deeranddeerhunting.com and be sure to like us on Facebook.